The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. Today's guest is here to share with you moments that you would think would have broken her, but instead have given her purpose in life. Let's welcome Donna Hartley. Hi, Donna.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here. It's exciting. And I liked your intro about me. Could have broken me, but as I say, I'm still standing.
Yes, you are. You're still. Oh my gosh, and you have so much to share. I can't even get there fast enough. Let's go ahead and start with you talking about when you were 6 years old and malnourished. How did that even happen? How were you malnourished as a 6-year-old?
I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and there was a lot of the parents didn't get along. So my father traveled. He was not there. At that time, women didn't have cars. They didn't have opportunity. They didn't travel. So my mom stayed home. There was not money left for food.
Okay.
So I didn't have enough to eat. So during that time, I was so sick. My mother took me to the doctors and they said, right to the hospital.
Mhm.
But when you're 6 years old and you look at your life, you don't know what's going on, but somewhere in your soul, you go, this isn't good. This isn't what I like. Plus, I had a wonderful girlfriend, my best girlfriend, Holly. And she came home from school one day and she didn't feel good. She went to bed and she never woke up. She passed on. So
Oh,
I'd also lost her. So when I went into that in and out of coma, that stage at 6 years old, I crossed over to the other side because when you come in, the veil is very thin from coming in to this life. And I just said, I don't want to go back. It's too hard. It's too hard. So I was shown what would happen to my mother, my brother, and my father if I didn't go back.
wow.
And it was awful.
What? So,
And
what can you tell us? What you saw?
well, I saw, and it's funny because it was years and years later that my mother said, she said, I would have killed your father. I would have shot him. Okay. So my mother would have gone to jail. My father would have died and my brother would have been abandoned. Right. He was older, but still not by that much.
Okay.
So it was years and years later when my mother said, if you would have died, I would have killed your father.
Is that
Years
when you?
later to get the validation that I
Mm,
knew when I was 6. I got it in my 20s from her.
okay.
So, but when I saw that image, I said, "Okay, I'm definitely got an Irish background." I said, here's the deal, okay? If I go back, I wanna see part of the future and part of my past and understand why I'm on Earth. So at 6 years old, it's like I renegotiated what my path was.
That's a
And
lot for a 6-year-old.
well, but your soul is enlightened on the other side. See what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Okay.
not a 6-year-old on the other side because we are wise when we're on the other side. It's when we come in and we pull down that veil that
Mhm.
we go, I don't remember anything. I'm starting new here on earth. Well,
Mhm.
on the other side, I made that to say, okay, I'm staying, but again, I want to see part of the past and part of my future. So I've always developed an intuition, a knowing, and I've always been able to see past lives as well as things coming in the future. Not that I paid attention, but I got it.
Do you think that people have to pass to the other side to have these gifts?
No,
Okay.
I think we accelerate it when we pass,
Mhm.
but we are given so much information on this planet. We can do it through meditation. We can do it through trusting our intuition. We can take classes, we can spend that quiet time with our soul. We can raise our energetic vibration instead of saying it's bad and it's good and judging, say, I have to learn something. What is it? But
Mhm.
people don't want to do the work sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's why we have a disease or somebody almost dies of cancer. That's the wake up call. And you go, oh, I got it.
Mhm.
See? So sometimes it takes that jolt when we're stubborn. I was stubborn in a lot of this lifetime, and I had to have lessons. But now I can see when something's coming a few blocks away, so I don't have to go through it.
Okay, so what happened after you were malnourished? Because I know at some point you started training for the Olympics, but there's no way you did that being malnourished.
I recovered. Our parents split up, and I always say this as kind of like an insight. I was young. I thought everybody moved in the dark in the middle of the night out of their houses, to their next house, right?
Oh
So,
my.
so there was so much anger going on. So my mother had custody of me during the week. My father had custody of me on the weekends. So on those weekends, we always did sports. And he was an avid skier. So I became an avid skier. My brother did too. But I was the one with the discipline. Now, you have to understand if you don't feel loved and there's anger, you have to find it somewhere. So
Mhm.
for me, it was succeeding, right?
Mhm.
Putting that
Yes.
foot to the pedal and saying, I got to do something. So I had a private coach, it was a small ski area. And I was kind of the one to carry on that energy. And I trained year round. I stayed in shape. I exercised. I ran ski poles all the time. I like slalom and giant slalom. So my goal, so we're talking the 60s,
Mhm.
was really focused on seeing if I could make it on the Olympic team. But at 16, I had to have surgery for my heart. They found a murmur that was pretty bad. So again, there's fights with the family. My mother's doctor said, don't go. My father's doctor said, yes. He won the battle. He won the court battle. He took me an hour and a half from home to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, said my mother could not visit. And I went through heart surgery alone for 5 days by myself in the hospital.
Oh my gosh. Why were you alone? Your dad had to go to work or
Yeah, he's like, she could handle it. He dropped me off. I don't
Huh?
think he got it. You know what I mean? That he needed to stay there. I had never met my doctors. They were from India. I'd never seen a person from India up to that point in my life. I mean, there's so many things when I look back. How did I do it? But during the surgery to check all on the aortic valve and everything, I guess they hit air clots or an air bubble was going to my heart. And I heard people screaming and yelling because you're just kind of a little awake. And I'm like kind of in the corner of the room looking down,
Okay.
and I felt this white light just go right through my body. Wow. And people calm down. I guess that busted that air bubble that would have killed me.
Okay.
So, again, you're so young, you're not figuring all this out, and nobody's ever talked, and you don't even know about the spiritual world in some
Right.
respect that much. So I recovered, and I remember I had all this energy. And later that day, I got up and I walked down the hall, and a nurse yelled at me to get back to my bed. And I'm like, nobody's telling me anything. So I survived, and I went back and I started skiing, but I never got to that level of competition again, that strength.
Yeah.
Do I ski today? I ski today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. It's my favorite place in the whole world on top of a ski mountain.
I think you said something really important though in there and talking about when we're not getting love, like we all need to be loved. And I think that's a really important thing to think about. Like, okay, if we are just craving a sport or we're craving, like when we have these strong cravings for different things, even food, right? All these
Yes.
different things, it's why? Why are we craving those? What are we missing? Who is not loving us or what part of ourselves are we not loving? There's all these questions that we can ask ourselves. So I think that was a really great thing to share. Okay, so you stop training for the Olympics.
Right. Still ski, but training for
Okay.
the Olympics. So, um, there was a moment also when I was starting to come back for the Olympics, but not doing good, that my father was really mad at me. My father was violent. So he hit me. I had different homes, I went between the homes. I went in the closet, my clothes are hanging down, and I am crying. And I have to decide what my choice is in my life. Is it that I stay with my father with the money, and can I get back to the Olympics, right? Or
Mhm.
go with myself or my mom, which didn't have the money for that.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting there crying, and then I said, I have to be my person in this life. I have to find my soul.
Mhm.
I have to have that respect. And so I walked out of that room. I'll never forget this. And I picked up the phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. I
Yeah.
called the ski area. There was a guy that I had met in my high school that said he skied there on weekends. I called the chalet and paged him, and he was there in the chalet at that moment. And he said, give me the address. I will pick you up. I can't even remember his name, but I am grateful. That's how I left the house. Now, years later, I had to forgive my father and deal with that. But, I think I say we sell our souls sometimes in this lifetime.
Yeah.
We want the money, we want the fame, we want whatever comes with that. And we don't honor our values. And in
Mhm.
that moment, I said, I have to be true to me.
Right.
I'm not going to tolerate this violence.
Yeah.
So that's where we make these defining moments in our life. So
Mhm.
any of your viewers that are listening, I'm saying you got to get real still and you got to go inside and you
Mhm.
have to say, am I being true to myself? And you got to work hard. I'm
Yeah.
not saying you don't, but when you're on that truth pattern, boy, life gets better than the other way.
What did it feel like when you recognized that you were going to leave doing this life that you had been doing for so long and you knew that was how you were getting fulfilled, right? Like you're saying, you knew that the success of doing well with skiing was giving you that love that you were missing in your life. And so that had to be super scary if you knew all this, you knew you were going to leave feeling love. I mean, what was
It,
your plan? Like,
no, that wasn't the plan. It wasn't the plan. And I was graduating from high school. I went to the prom with a guy that I thought that I liked, and he walked out on me. Okay, at the prom. So when you look back, you go, I call that like a God thing. The universe is closing the doors so you move on.
so you weren't scared that you
Oh,
were gonna be in this place of no love?
of
No
course I
no
was.
fulfillment? Okay.
No fulfillment, no love. But I was going to leave for college, so I went to the University of Montana from Pennsylvania.
Did you just feel like, "I need to go find this somewhere else? I don't know where, I don't know how, but, like,
I
I'm
had to leave.
letting go?" Okay.
I had to leave my hometown. I had to leave my hometown, and I had to leave that environment because I would have gotten caught up back in it again.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't even tell you how scared I was driving across the country with my brother from Pennsylvania to Montana because that's where he went. And I wasn't an A student, trust me. So I wasn't going to any of the schools on the East Coast. I was lucky to get into the University of Montana, which I loved. And I did ski for the team. The
Oh, great.
first year, yeah, it was okay, not great. And the second year was awful.
Okay.
I looked at a gate and I fell. And sitting in the library, minus 30 degrees outside with the wind blowing, my college roommate named Sandy and I, uh, bunk partners said, we got to go somewhere else. And we said, University of Hawaii, because we had sorority sisters. Just like that, I changed my life again because it wasn't working.
Mhm.
Now, you can tell my personality. I don't give up, but I
Yeah.
also know when it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's a point I think you can feel like something's being forced.
Correct. And I think people stay in things too long
Absolutely.
sometimes. A job because it has security, a
Mhm.
relationship because they're afraid to go out,
There's
travel somewhere in the world because they've never been. I'm definitely a risk taker. I am absolutely a survivor and a risk taker. And I know that about myself. Have I failed? I've failed more than most people I know, but I've also taken the risk.
but it's worth it, right?
It's always worth it. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I people hold themselves back because of comfort and fear. That they're comfortable doing what they're doing, but then they're also fearful of what it's going to be like to make that shift. But then it's kind of crazy to me because I always think, well, but you know that you're not loving what you're doing. So what's greater to you, that fear or
The
staying
fear.
in this? Yeah, it is.
Most people take the fear. At Montana, see, I was a cheerleader in Pennsylvania for 4 years, and that gave me feeling love, being a cheerleader also. Well, I went out for Pom Pom Girl, and I didn't make it at the University of Montana. So there was a heavy rejection that same year that I wasn't doing good at skiing, and I wasn't getting any acknowledgement for anything, you know?
How long
And
did you stay down from that? Like, when things would happen to you that would put like, you didn't make it, did that keep you down, or are you somebody that just kind of moves on within a minute?
I'm depressed.
Okay.
I've thought of suicide many times in this life. Yeah, it's got me down.
How'd you get yourself out of that?
I think it's a couple things. I get out in nature, whether that's take a walk or whatever. It's nothing exciting or with anybody else. It's not like that. Nature, like just even walking in the trees helped. And I sometimes can't figure it out in my brain at that time what I'm doing. I can't figure it out. But I know somewhere, somehow, I say, there's going to be a path for me.
Mhm.
I hadn't found it, but I was trying a lot of different ways. I hadn't found it. So when my girlfriend Sandy said Hawaii and I said Hawaii, and we had sorority sisters that had come back, we go, why not? So we applied. And it's funny, it's so different then than now. Went to the library, black and white picture of Hawaii and a little form, and you got it, and you sent it in, and that's how we got accepted. And there wasn't out of state tuition. So I was like, yay,
Yeah.
So flew to Hawaii the next year. I didn't have housing. We didn't have anything. Sandy and I arrived. I mean, I think kids going to college now, their parents have the room decorated, they have everything. We had nothing,
Oh my gosh.
but we had hope.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, I had hope that my life would get better.
Mhm.
So it wasn't exactly picture perfect up to that
Okay,
time.
so you had hope. Did you have faith?
I did. I
Okay.
did. I had both. I had hope and faith.
Mhm.
Again, I was lost. We found like a garage to live in, and registered for the college and started off that way and met a lot of local boys. And I learned to surf. When I surfed, there wasn't even any girls on the surfs at Diamond Head. And I learned to surf because, again, I was that risk taker.
Mhm.
I wanted to adventure. I wanted to live life. And then there's something else came up, and that was the title of Miss Hawaii that you could run for the pageant. So I got ready and I ran, and of course I lost. And then I ran the next year and I lost. And I ran the next year and I got new hairstyle and gown and the whole thing. And I lost. And finally the fourth year I ran and I had modeling lessons and voice lessons, and the fourth, and I lost.
Oh,
And so I said, I'm never running again. That's it. Never running again. The fifth year came up and
one more time.
I said, I'm going to change how I think about this. I am Miss Hawaii. I've put the energy, I've put the talent in. I didn't have those connections before. I didn't know, how to prep for it and take the modeling and the acting classes. So I'm going to run, and this is it. I'm going to give it my all. I'm not going to find any excuses. See, people find excuses why I only go halfway and drop out.
Mhm.
So when I walked down that runway, I said to myself over and over again, I am Miss Hawaii. I am Miss Hawaii. And that's what the judges saw. The energy. You see, that's
Yeah.
energy. That's vibration. That's where I was. And when I won the title, people were like shocked because I had lost so many times. I didn't even tell any of my friends I was running the fifth time. They didn't even know it till the next day because I didn't want them to see in case I didn't make it, right?
Yeah.
But if I would have not won, I wouldn't have run again. But it was in my destiny to give it my best shot.
Mhm.
And if you give something your best shot and it's meant to be and you do it, then sometimes that door opens up for you. And I knew at that time it would open up Hollywood because that's where I was going to go, opportunities, restaurants, people I had never met.
Mhm.
I was living in basically a garage, going to college, putting myself through, and I sold pots and pans door to door is what I did for a living. So this would change it, and it did.
I think that's really important to share with people because we were talking earlier about just kind of knowing when to quit, because sometimes there is a point where it's like, okay, it's time to be done with this and move on and move forward. But I think from what I hear you sharing is you knew every year you hadn't really put in your all. Like there was a little bit more you could do. So I should probably try this again because I haven't done it all. And then the next year it's like, actually, I could make this change and that change. And so every year you knew there was a little bit of growth that you could make happen and maybe actually get to that goal. And then I think you finally got to that fifth year where you're like, okay, I've done it all. Now I figured out like my mindset was missing, but like I believe there's nothing else missing. So I'm going at it one more time with everything and then moving on. And so I think that's really great.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly. Yeah. So
So
I
let me ask though, what was the purpose of running for Miss Hawaii?
because males had the opportunity then with sports and with things to move up and get paid more money and to travel places and do things.
Mm,
I didn't have that. And I knew being a Miss Hawaii that would open the doors for me that were shut before.
I love that.
And even now, years later, when I'm introduced, I speak all over the world and they say, oh, she's done this and been on this TV and ABC and NBC and all this. And then say a former Miss Hawaii, I see the people go, they look at me. And it's like, oh my gosh, that title is still with me.
Yeah,
So, I knew it would open doors and it did.
it did. Okay,
Yeah.
so you do Miss Hawaii, and then is the next thing Hollywood?
Hollywood. Oh, yeah. I had to get beat up big time. So go to Hollywood. I don't really have any connections, but I do take lot of classes at CBS. I work hard. I study. So it was 7 years of rejection financially, emotionally, spiritually. And luckily, I have a sales background. So I sold motorhomes, I sold boats. I did all those kind of big shows that's
Okay.
exposed. And that's how I made the living. So nothing was happening, you know, little parts here and there, but nothing. And finally, I hit an all-time low after 7 years. The boyfriend broke up. They were selling my building. Uh, it was not going. So
Mhm.
I got the opportunity to fly back to Hawaii and to MC the Miss Hawaii pageant.
Oh,
And
fun.
this is what oh yeah, I was like, yes. And I said, this will change my life. This is it. And I said, let my life change. Let it never be the same, you know? And so I boarded that Continental DC-10. We took off at 9:22 in the morning, but let me tell you, I had trouble boarding that flight.
Mm.
I had a premonition over and over again about a plane exploding and burning. But I thought that was my life in LA,
Mm.
exploding and burning.
Mm.
So, last one to board, I was in the jetway and I could not walk down.
Oh,
I made them change my seat at the last minute to an aisle seat. And at 9:22 on March 1st, 1978, we took off down that runway. And just as we're lifting off, one, two, three, bang, bang, bang. 3 tires on the left exploded. We tilted and we were on fire.
oh my gosh.
The pilot jammed the brakes. You felt like you were being cut in half. The flight attendants are screaming, tighten your seatbelt, head between the knees. I looked outside. I saw Sepulveda Boulevard, the main street. I saw all the cars. I saw the fence. I go, we're going right through that. We're going. And I thought life is over. But again, that white light, that energy field, that is unconditional love. Because I had said, let my life change. Let it never be the same, or let me die.
Mhm.
That's what I had said. So when I grabbed my feet, I felt that energy came in, and I really thought I was leaving. This was
Wow.
it. I was going to leave, with the flames and the way we were shaking, and we were going 167 miles per hour. We were V1 speed just for a second for takeoff, and we are shattering in the whole thing. And now we're jacked up, and we stopped, but there's smoke, there's flames, everything coming in, and
Mhm.
you unbuckled, and there's like 3 or 4 people in the aisle,
Mm.
walking down, and you're moving like just like this. That's so.
Yeah.
And at the very end, I would had turned to get out of the plane. I fell to the opposite side and shoot down. And now I'm right where the flames are. But that was the moment of truth. Because what I heard, these aren't really words, these are thought patterns that go through you. You were given this life. What have you done with it? And the 4 questions that I will ask everyone that's listening, because life is important. Do you love yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Do you love your family and friends? Are you living your goals and dreams? And if you die today, have you left this planet a better place for being here?
Mm-hmm.
And I screamed no to all of those because that was the truth. And I said, let me live. And I scrambled back on all 4s because now I was given an assignment. You
Yeah.
know, I looked at my life. I tried to be what Hollywood wanted, not who I was, right?
Did you
I,
take on this assignment for yourself or for everyone?
you first had to clean up your act. And then I knew it would be bigger. When
Mhm.
I hit the bottom of that chute, which was burning, I was the last one to get down and it collapsed. And I fell into all the asphalt in my hands and I limped away, just like the dream I had had. And I didn't know if I was alive, dead, dreaming, where I was. But when I turned back and I saw the plane exploding again, then I heard, you will write and you will speak and you will help people help themselves. And, the rational mind goes, no, wait, I can't write. I'm not good at English. That's just, and then you go, okay, okay, okay. No, you
Yeah.
just, you understand you have a bigger assignment than you. But I also knew I would leave Hollywood, which I did. I also knew I would help, but I didn't know how that would work. There's this confusion time of healing that had to happen for at least 2 years after that before,
Did everyone survive the plane crash?
no,
No.
4 died there,
Mhm.
because of the crash. 90 were in the hospitals, mostly in the burn wards.
Wow.
That's what took the tolls.
Did
And
you get burned at all or
no, I had a sprained ankle, heat blotches. I got singed, I got like
Mhm.
singed. But what happened is then I was very, very thorough when I wrote that report. They asked people that could to what happened. And I didn't know I got subpoenaed to testify.
Mm.
The one passenger to testify. I didn't know my life was unfolding the way it should. And I was going to be cross-examined by Continental Airlines, McDonnell Douglas, Goodrich Tire, Pico Shoe Company, Pilots Association, the whole thing. And I can't do this. I took the subpoena. I went to my girlfriend's house, slapped it down, and I said, I can't do this. Open the refrigerator. And I always say to people, what did I pull out? And they go, wine. I said, yeah, it's like 12 noon, or something, but bread. And the girlfriend sat me down. And thank God we have girlfriends. And she said, if not you, if you don't speak up, who's going to do it? So
Mhm.
she called her girlfriend and I went to a burn ward. Her girlfriend was a nurse there. And I saw now the passengers with 20, 30, 40% of their bodies burned on like an egg carton. And an elderly lady saw me and she recognized me. I didn't know her. And she said, come here, come here. And Phyllis, the nurse, was there and she walked me over and I had to hold on to the bed thing. I was ready to collapse. And she said, you were on that plane. And I said, yeah. And she goes, it hurts.
No.
And she said, promise me it won't happen to anyone else.
Oh my gosh.
There I got my assignment. I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do with it. I was so overwhelmed because I felt so unworthy. How
Mhm.
could I change it? Did not know, waived my right to sue the airlines, went in, had 1,000 people in that room, cross-examined by tables of experts, and made safety regulations when it came to the visual screens, the tires, and the gauges on the tires and the ropes. Now, I don't want to mislead you. A lot of people on a lot of committees made the difference. But I think in this world, we focus on the negative. What I focused on was the solutions. As a survivor, this is what I needed.
Wow. That that woman was clearly a big piece of
Mhm.
you moving forward with sharing the story. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Makes makes me cry. Um, But that's a beautiful story, and I think it all comes together though, right? That was the first push of like,
Right.
that's a really, really hard thing to have to go speak on,
Right.
but that's what gets you going with speaking, and I mean, if you can do that, you can speak anywhere, right? And you can
Well,
share
I
anything.
did not know at that moment that my career destiny had changed and I was
Oh,
going to be a speaker. And I was going to talk about, like you're saying, dealing with those massive changes, adapting, being flexible, raising your vibration, getting honest inside, all those skills that come with really being the true person you're meant to be,
yeah.
and I had to figure these out. I didn't know it. I had to take classes and study. And luckily, I had a mentor named George. Now, I always say, what a boring name. But George had come in my life when I was Miss Hawaii. And he had so much wisdom. And I remember when I came out of that trial and I saw him there because he traveled all over. He was a consultant. He smokes a cherry flavored pipe. And he was at my car and I go, George, what are you doing in the parking lot? He said, partner, I thought you could use a friend. So I said, George, why did this happen? And he loved his food. He was from Oklahoma. He said, let's go eat. So he's eating and I can't eat a thing. I'm like bubbling inside, why? And then he simply said, there are no accidents. Everything happens for a reason. Once you understand what your learning lesson is, then you can move to the next level.
Yeah.
I had no idea the wisdom in those words.
Well, I mean, I get it because I feel like I haven't really figured that out myself until just probably more recently in the last, well, I don't know. I mean, I've always kind of known, but as I get older, it's hitting me harder and harder. But I posted yesterday this reel, and the cover I put on there was, don't let your heart not be for something greater.
Mhm.
And it resonates with a lot of the people I'm sharing their stories on my show, but it also, for me, I have been through so much with dying multiple times and then getting a pacemaker and then having the wire go through my heart and into my lung and then getting all these different illnesses and then getting to the point where my body's just completely shutting down. I couldn't even sleep at night because if I laid on my back, my chest would not expand up and down. I couldn't breathe. And it got to the point where the doctor, I walked in and I mean, I'll never forget it. I walk in the door and she's like, "Have you heard of ALS?" And I was like, "Yes." But that means you're going to die. And so that's when I went off on my own and started doing my own research and finding the connection of ALS and different infections in the body and different things. And so I figured out a lot on my own, but I just so strongly to my core believe there is no way I have been through, I mean, that's just like a small piece of what I've been through, but there is no way I have been through all of these things just for me, just to like
Right.
enjoy myself or just to have a little bit of growth. Like I know that I am meant to share my story and share other people's stories, and I share people's stories and I try to pull out all the goods that are going to help everyone else because I really believe that our most difficult days are meant for everyone. And so that's what I'm doing here.
So understand our culture for centuries and centuries has been to hide the stories. And we're finally at a time now to share the stories,
Mhm,
not to make us better, but you're right, to understand you're not alone. Someone else
mhm,
hears the story and, oh, they went through that. I'm going through this. Maybe I can survive too. See what I'm saying?
mhm.
So sharing those stories, because there was a part of me that didn't want to get up and speak about my story at the beginning. I talk about everything else and then I go, oh yeah, and I went through this plane crash. It would be like 2 minutes of my presentation and everybody go, more.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on with what you say. And when these things happen to us, we have a destiny, we have a fulfillment, we have a responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a very major catastrophic thing, and then I feel like you were very clearly saved, but then you have this woman that's like, basically begging you to not keep quiet about the incident,
Right.
like,
A lot of
how
things. Yeah. Yeah. They went.
clearly
And I
meant to
left
be a
I left
therapist.
Hollywood, I left the acting behind, and I moved to Lake Tahoe and started over with my life, and I stayed in a ski cabin up here with 13 people that skied, it was like I was back in a dorm, in a bunk room. I had to start again, and I was a cocktail waitress, and I don't really drink, so here we go again. So, I think people have to understand they go up, but you go down. And it doesn't mean you're down, it just means you're clearing. So I was out in nature and I was skiing and I was walking, and then I'd started teaching young kids modeling and acting because, I came out of Hollywood and they said, if you can do with us, my teenage son, can you come and do the employees and teach and talk,
Mhm.
on attitude and adjusting? And I never did a business plan at the beginning. So that's how I started my career, with no money and just that belief and telling the truth and telling the story and putting some skills behind it. And I did that for years and years. I went with a guy for a long time. We broke up. And I said, well, I sat down with George, my mentor, and said, George, I want a family. And he said, if plan A, B, and C doesn't work, go to D, F, Q, or whatever. And I said, what does that mean? He said, adopt. And it took me 7 years. And the 11th adoption worked for me over 7 years. Finally, the last one.
What is that process like? I know a little bit, but I'm just curious. So you're saying it took you 11 attempts over 7 years. What does that mean? Like,
Well,
and
you fill out the paperwork, you get with an agency, you get rejected, things like that. They accept you, they don't want you. I was single. I was in my 40s then. A lot of people that wanted adoption wanted a picket fence and two parents. That was the time. That's what they believed in.
yeah.
So my daughter came out of Las Vegas and it was the 11th adoption. So and what happened, and this is kind of mystical and that spiritual side too of crossing over and coming back. George had passed on, my best buddy that I talked to all the time and my mentor. And he always promised me he'd be there at the adoption. So when I have a little girl, Mariah, and I have her in the bassinet, and I have to go to the last room, this hospital, they've given the child back to the birth parents for 3 days
Oh wow.
and I have to wait for 3 days, and we get halfway there where the lawyers are at the last room, and she stops, and I thought, "It's over. She's gonna change her mind like other parents." I'd never gotten to that stage, but,
Mhm.
and then she runs in her room, and she comes back, and by then I'm crying. She said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Why did you stop?" She said, "We're in the nursery, but it's weird. I smell this cherry pipe smoke." That's what George smoked.
Oh, gives me chills.
And I said, maybe you don't believe in this, Kelly, but George, my mentor, is here saying, this is the right child for me. This is the right time. This is the right place. And
Yeah.
she said, of all the parents we could have chose, there was something that said, we chose you. She was,
She was the
she,
right child for you, and you were
yeah,
the
she
right
was
mom for her.
You got it. So we signed all the papers, and then the hardest lesson in my life began being a single mom, home and working. That was the hardest lesson by far, by far. But the biggest blessing, and I will say that the biggest blessing and the hardest lesson I've ever had. So I signed up for it, though. I wanted to do this. This was very important for me.
Mhm.
But let's see, at 6 years old, I had stage 3 when she was just in first grade, melanoma. And the doctor said, "Make out the will. We don't think you're gonna make it." And
You're
when
like, "Not this again."
I just couldn't believe it because, you have to understand the plane crash was on March 1st, the melanoma's on March 1st, and years later, I'm gonna have heart surgery on March 1st.
Yes,
So
I saw that. I saw that on your bio, and I was like, "Did she recognize this? I wonder."
oh, yes. The third time I said, I got it. I got it, guys. I understand I'm being called. So what happened is, you get the best doctors in San Francisco. You go home, you throw everything out of your house that's artificial. You get clear. You say perfect health, perfect surgery, perfect recovery. All my friends said it. I mean, I had a plan and I made out my will. But right before I went to the top of the mountain, Squaw Valley, ice skating with my daughter, and she said, Mommy, Mommy, I wish I was you.
Oh,
Why? She said, then I would have the boo boo on my leg where I had the melanoma.
oh.
I said, stay here. I went around the ice skating rink and I looked up and I said, this is the deal. Are you listening? I said, there's no place for her to go in the will, no one for her to raise her. I said, let me get her through the teenage years. Let me get her through college. And I promise you, I will not complain about those teenage years. I mean, of course I did, but I was there. It wasn't about me. See, it wasn't about me. It was her. And next day I got the notice there was an opening There was a cancellation. I could get in sooner. I went in. It was a 3.5 hour procedure. I saw it from the other side. I went to the other side. I saw my mentor, George. I saw family members and things like that. And then, of course, I was sent back. And it was unbelievable. Again, my recovery period. They couldn't understand because when they did that surgery, I was stage 3. They couldn't find cancer in my body anywhere.
Okay, so what happened though? What happened on the other side?
Oh, what happened on the other side? Well,
I'm like,
I
everyone's gonna be like, wait a minute, you just said you went to the other side. What happened?
well, first of all, when I came out of my body, I saw like 12 images of people over my body. Okay, and I saw them from like the waist up. They're like a hologram, but they were doctors. I could see whether doctors. They were Native American chiefs. They were people from India. So these 12 people were watching my over my body, and they kind of nodded at me to go on, to go to another level to learn. They were going to take care of my body. You
Wow.
know, it's all unspoken. It's just an energy thing that you get. And that's where I met George again. He was like a hologram. And we talked. And so funny, I go, George, I've missed you. What have you missed about Earth? And he said, I miss the food. And I go, really?
Of course.
Really? I'm here to be enlightened? Really? And then I went to the other side, and you have, you know, I was blessed to see the ascendant masters, but you don't really see them. They're like balls of light. That's because my vibration wasn't high enough to see them, but I got information from them. I got information about the world. I got information about myself. And I said, it's so beautiful here. And they said, and you are going back.
What was the information you got about the world?
Uh, one, and I got this. So there's a combination. I'll say it this time. I got it that time, and I got it 4 years later when I went to open heart surgery. Because 4 years after that, I had open heart surgery on a March 1st. So this is between the two combinations. One, that the world will go through a massive, massive change. We are in that time period now. They said we have been ruled by the strong, and now we're ruled by the courts. We have to be ruled by love. Do not have that on earth. That we are going back to very basic Native American energy of truth, honor. Our word is our truth. We don't need 65 lawyers to solve a problem.
We
Okay.
lack I don't know what year this was Is this what
This is
year?
2002 and 2006. I get the information.
But that's still very much today. We lack
That's right.
so much love and
That's right. That's where we are on the planet now. And they said there will be a shift. You will feel like you're in a civil war in America. So there'll be, they call them earth changes to wake us up. So there was a lot of wake up calls in there.
Mhm,
And they said, that's kind of your assignment, is to show people they have the ability to have kindness, to have love, to change, and to get out of that. I must have money. I must be at the top.
mhm,
And it was so overwhelming between those two visits that I crossed over. I couldn't imagine how it would happen. But now we're exactly living it, you
mhm.
know, the destruction of a lot of things that didn't work,
Yeah.
and that power is for some and not for all. I mean, I really came back with that feeling that we are all connected.
Mhm,
We are all equal. We have to learn lessons, and we have to help people. And
mhm,
it's not the big things. It's when someone stops to open a door for you when you have packages. It's when someone teaches 5 kids in their neighborhood how to read. It doesn't have to be those big things. It's those active kind to start back to communities, they said.
mhm,
Having that community, having that support, and working together.
mhm.
So it was so between the 2 times I crossed over, because 4 years after that, here I am back again. My daughter is only in 5th grade, and I have to have open heart surgery. That my
Okay.
valve finally now has collapsed. And that one, again, I went over, and then I really spent, because I was in the hospital a week, a lot more time on the other side than I
Mhm,
did on the earth side. And that's where I really, all my parents had passed away. Everyone had passed away. And it was my stepdad that I met on the other side that I adored. And he said, I said, why did you leave so quickly? Why? After my mom, 2 years. And he said, because you would have come home and taken care of me in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and you would have missed your heart symptoms. That's why I went out so quickly.
Wow.
And just like that, the pain was gone. I think people don't know that people on the other side are with us all the time in a second.
Mm-hmm.
We just are too thick to get their messages.
Mm-hmm.
But if you raise your vibration, if you meditate, if you're intuitive, you can communicate. I communicate with George all the time when I need help. I go, look, George, I need this. I need some help here. What are you doing? Having a meal up there? It doesn't have to be formal. It just has to be loving and committed, And the
Yeah.
same thing. Thank you to my stepdad, John. I go, John, I feel like you were around me. My mom. Oh my gosh, mom. Did you? So I am really grateful all the time. I say that. I love it. I'm thankful. There isn't a day that I'm not grateful. And I think that's another quality people on earth have to develop.
For sure. I agree. I want to ask you though, do you feel like you keep having things that happen to you? And do you feel like it's because of something unresolved with your own personal healing? Or do you feel like it's just time for another lesson?
I think it was unresolved because understand my father really rejected me and then family, and we fought. I never felt loved.
Right.
My last name is Hartley. You think I'd have figured out this thing with a heart issue because I did not know there was one more heart surgery I'd have to go through. And it was during the pandemic. But now, sitting in my living room, I knew something was wrong. No symptoms. Hands were cold and feet were cold. That's all. It was March. The whole world was shut down. When I finally could get to a clinic a few months later, they said, you got to go in for heart surgery again.
Oh.
And I said, whatever the lessons I've missed, whatever the lack of love I've had for myself, that's why I became this achiever, and I never married. I had the opportunities, but I didn't feel they'd really maybe be there because my father was like that. He was dazzling and outgoing, but he was never there for me. So I had learned to be there for myself. So I said, I want to clear it this time. When I cross over, I want to see what pattern or what I'm holding on to that's deep in my core. Now, I am a full-time past life reader. Now, when I say that, I'm telling you, Andrea, I can clear a room like in 20 seconds, right? Because people go, she's nuts, But I do believe we've lived before. I do believe we'll live again. And I
Yes.
do believe we're down here to learn lessons. Okay. And I know many of my lifetimes, but I said, this is the one I want to know. So during that surgery, which was called TAVR, I crossed out of my body and I saw myself back in the medieval days. And I was an orphan. My parents had died of some flu. I didn't have money. I didn't have food. I was like, in rags. And I was like 14, 15 years old. I was stealing apples. But the Lord of the land saw me, had these ladies clean me up, gave me a little 2-room place to live and food and a beautiful dress and this gorgeous green cape of velvet. I just thought, I'm living my life. So I'm basically his mistress, his whore, and I don't judge any lives. That's why I'm a good reader. I don't judge any lives, including my own or anybody else's. And dated for, not dated, but, was there for him. And I got pregnant. And I said, you must leave your wife and marry me. I mean, now I'm like 16. I mean, I was so naive. And then I miscarried. But I did not tell him. I kept the lie going. I said, you have to marry me. I didn't tell him. And then I'm walking in a little town and 2 horsemen come down and one gets off with the dagger and stabs me right in my aortic valve. And I die right there in the gutter. And the village lets me stay there for 3 days and rot because I was, a whore.
Yeah.
So when I saw that and I realized he had lied and I had lied and I wasn't really truthful with him or love, or he didn't love me of love in this lifetime. But now you have to do the work. I had to forgive myself. in that lifetime and not judge myself. And I mean, at my core, and it took crying. I had to forgive him for lying to me. I had to forgive the men that stabbed me. And I had to forgive all the villagers that thought I was nothing. I mean, that took some time. But now that I have that released and crying and walking and whatever it took, to get rid of that, really being honest, I can say that I finally love myself, and it took a lifetime to get there.
Yeah, it took me a long time too, but okay, so this is funny, but not funny, I guess. I actually been told too that I was stabbed in the heart as well in a past life, but I think this. So I'm curious because for everybody listening, I'll get back to Donna for a second, but then at the end she wants to do a bonus and she's going to do like a little past life reading on me. So this is interesting, and hopefully I don't. Does this screw you up if I tell you too much about something I already know?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was told that I was stabbed in the heart, but I was like, I think a leader of a group of women, and we were like warriors.
Mhm.
And I think it was just kind of like a battle situation, and I got stabbed in the heart, supposedly. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Donna says in a few
Well, we'll
minutes.
see we'll see what comes up,
We'll see what
I
Donna
never know.
says.
I'm always channeled, so we never know what's gonna
Yeah.
come up, but and you've had heart issues, right?
Yeah. I mean, I still have heart issues, and yeah,
See?
and still sometimes I'm like, there must be something else I need to figure out. I feel like it
So
should work a little bit better, but yes, I have a
so
pacemaker.
you have to go in and clear that and forgive yourself for whatever that was in that lifetime. There's no good or they're bad. You were where you were supposed to be at that time.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm picking up 2 lives for you. So we'll just see that at the end if it works and there's a bonus. Okay.
Well, yeah, and there's another thing I'll share with you that's a past life. It's crazy. It's a dream that I would have like every single night as a child. But we'll get there in a minute. So let's wrap up your story,
Let's
Donna.
wrap up the story. Okay. So
That was a
there I
teaser.
am during the pandemic. You can't go out, you can't do anything, you can't talk to anyone. I've had heart surgery. So I come home, and this is where I think we have to go in to find answers instead of expecting other people. So I go, I have to do a rehab for my heart, but I can't. So I bought a cat stroller, put my cat in it, bought a watch, that would tell me. And in 3 months, I walked 500 miles in my neighborhood with the cat. That was my rehab because you can't go into somebody's house after the pandemic was going on. And when I went back to the doctors, they used the exact words I'd used going into surgery. You are perfect. See,
Oh,
set yourself up for success and then do the work.
yes, do the work. It won't
And
just
do
come
the
to
work.
you.
I will not tell anyone it was easy. It isn't. But
Mhm.
I did the work. So, and to this day, when I get the stroller out, the cat jumps right in because she knows she's gone for a walk. So that's kind of where I am now. I work as a speaker, I do women's retreats, and I do past life readings.
And you have written 3 books.
I have Fire Up Your Life, Fire Up Your Intuition, and Fire Up Your Healing. Yep.
So where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, they can get the books on Amazon, or they can go to my website if they want me. It's under my name, Donna Hartley, and they just have to email me. The information's on there, and that's how they find me. Yeah,
Great, thank you.
DonnaHartley.com. Yep, Donna
Mhm.
Hartley. Here you
Yeah.
go.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on today. And now we can dive into this bonus session. Before we start, though, I was going to share just because every time you were talking about your experiences of crossing over or seeing loved ones and just those big experiences, I had one too when I was very very sick. I mean, I have a lot of those now, but um, this was like a more grand one where I was very, very sick and to the point where, I thought I was going to die. I mean, I actually do 100% believe I would have died had I not taken taken my life into my own hands and started
Yeah.
researching and finding the things I needed. But I woke up one night and I saw an angel like in the corner of my room near the ceiling. I saw this angel and I just looked at her and I was like, not today, not today. Like
Mm,
it really hit me in that moment. It was so real. Like, oh, I'm like you're saying, kind of in between veils almost. It was like I
yeah.
could cross over if I wanted to.
Yeah.
They were like coming for me, like, do you want this? And it was like, okay, I'm going to make the decision right now. No. nice to see you, but come back another like 50 years from now. And so I think that was maybe a turning point for me where I realized like I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And I guess I do actually have to fight harder than I've ever fought because the other side is ready for me if I'm ready. And so I
Right.
made the decision that I wasn't. But the dream I was going to say that I had as a child, my mom and I would be on the side of the road and we would paint. This was, I mean, it was, I don't even know, probably hundreds of years ago, but we would be on the side of like this dirt road on the side of a mountain and we had our little like painting easels. But I mean, we're talking hundreds of years ago. So this looks like, there's no houses. I mean, it's like
Right.
very ancient times. And we had like our little paint on our little palettes and we were painting. And every single time these Indians would come by on horses and this is so awful. I feel like I shouldn't even share this, but yeah, they would kill my mom in front of me every time. Every time.
And they took you?
I don't think so. I always woke up after that happened to her. My recollection though, no, I don't think they did. I think they left me. Like I was left alone as a small child and I don't know what happened thereafter. So I don't
Wow.
think so. I think I
Well,
stayed.
these are all lives you've lived.
Yeah.
They're in all of us. See, that's what we don't realize. We store them like a computer. We call them Akashic records or whatever. They're stored there.
Yeah.
And when I do a reading, I just go to your records and pull it out. Now,
Mhm.
what you have to do as a reader is remove your ego and your knowledge and let it be channeled and let it come direct. So I guarantee all those dreams that we've had or other people have, they
Mhm.
are part of a life, or they give us a sense of the energy we had to go through. See,
Mhm.
like I thought the plane crash was just the energy I was burning up in Hollywood, but it wasn't. It was the real one. So,
Mhm.
yeah. But we have them. And people now, the veil's getting thinner. We're turning into those truths to realize what we are doing here. I mean, I give hundreds and hundreds of readings. And this is the question that always comes up. What is the block that's stopping me from being me? And what is my destiny in this life?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
what I get all the time. Everybody wants to know, what is my purpose? Yeah. How
And
can I
isn't that like such a great question? But not everybody has that question. Obviously, people that come to you do, but I think it's such a great question, and everybody should be asking themselves that. Like, what are you living for if you're not living for your destiny?
Right. Well, but they they're just going day to day, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Until, again, a surgery, an accident, a loss of a loved one, that's when you're not on your path. Then you get those wake up calls. That's the wake
Mhm.
up call. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it.
No, I
So do you
totally.
want to do a life? We'll see.
Yes, let's see. Oh, let's see.
Okay, this is bonus. We'll see. Okay. This
If
is how
anything,
I
I'm gonna say though, if anything seems weird in the recording to people watching, I may have to cut out pieces because she's gonna ask me personal
okay.
information. Just so people know if it's like, oh,
Okay.
what was that cutout? It's just
This could be a bonus. You could have extra. I always pull cards before I start because I usually don't know people at all when I do this. So I just need to know where you are right now. So I'm just going to pull a few cards and it tells me. Okay, let's see. Okay. Ooh,
so
first
I have to
card
tell
up.
you where I'm living?
Nope, I don't need that yet. These are just the cards. I'll need that for the reading. Second card up. Oh my gosh. Okay. And I pull three cards, one more card. What do you need to know? And then I'll hold them up to the camera so you can see them. What does she need to know? Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. First card. Okay. You have power. That means you are in this lifetime to claim power as a female and have your voice heard. Okay. That's number one. Number two, divine guidance. Can you see that card?
Yeah.
Divine guidance. Number two. And number three is that where you get your answers is when you retreat inside of you.
Mm,
That's where you get your wisdom and your knowledge. So I know you're a very strong person because you can get all these other things that come up: study, signs, support, emerging. You didn't get any of those cards. See what I mean? You got the ones you were supposed to. So I always do that for reading because it tells me exactly where people are right now. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I close my eyes. Takes me about 30 seconds. I ask my personality to drop out to be guided. Okay. you had said about being stabbed, so that's the one I'm gonna go to first,
Okay.
okay? You were what I would call an Amazon woman way back in time, Amazon woman, where women ruled the earth, okay? And they were warriors, okay? And I don't see a lot of men around, but there are men, but it was the women that were in charge, and it was warriors, it was survival, get the food, keep the enemies away, do all that. Now, I don't know where this is on the planet, because the planet is different then. Could be South America, I'm not sure. But you aren't the top leader, but you are definitely in the deciding factor of this kind of strong village of, let me see, 20, 40, maybe
Well,
about 40 women. Okay. I see cliffs, I see water, but I see young children. Okay. And it's more like the men are kind of helping with the children too. They're
mhm,
doing it. So in, in, in a battle against other women, it's women against women in this lifetime. That's where you're stabbed. That's where you're
mm,
stabbed on the battlefield. Did you have children in that life? Yes, you had one child. Okay.
mm,
And did you live to be, let me see, 39, 40, 45? You didn't make it to 45. So, and please, that's pretty old at that time, but you probably made it to like, 40, 41, 42, 43 in that
42,
time.
yeah.
But this is what I'll tell you, the unresolved issue. So then I always bring the issue forward. It's
Mhm,
not that you died or did that in that lifetime. You died with some anger in you
mm,
because your people were getting beat by these other people. So
mhm,
you had anger towards them. How could they defeat you? You were great warriors. You were wonderful. How could they? So when you died with that anger went in your heart.
mm,
That's the heart issues you are resolving in this life. So if you had any disappointment in this life, you have to let it go. Any anger towards anyone, even if you don't want to have some anger, this could be when you were younger or whatever,
mhm,
or abandon. Here you are going to abandonment your people if you die. So
mhm.
all those lessons. Now, there's no time on the other side. So lives can happen at all different times. It's very hard to explain, but you are, because you are a high soul energy in this life with a destiny, you came in with those lessons to say, I want to let go of that abandonment feeling. I want to let go of that anger that I held towards my enemy and that disappointment that we were going to lose. So that's
Mhm,
what you're solving in this problem. So the heart comes up as an issue, and
mhm,
there you were stabbed. So, but you are resolving it in this life. That's why a few times you think you're going to die because of what you go through, but then your hope and your intuition and your guide said, no, I'm not done. I have to clear this up and other things. So
mhm.
that's lifetime one. Questions? Does that ring true? What do you understand from it?
Yeah, I think it rings true. I definitely don't do well with people not being, morally on what's the word? I just I don't do well with people that lack morals, I guess I should say. And that does like frustrate me and I can't understand it. I'm like, just be a good person. And so like I do get angry when I mean I shouldn't say I feel like in the past, I feel like I have come around a lot,
Mhm.
like to
Yes,
the
you
point
have.
where
Yeah.
now I really understand like you get to choose how you feel. Um, but I still think there's a little bit of I don't like people that try to cut corners and not
Mhm.
be fair. I want people to be fair, and I do still, I think, get frustrated with people that just are unfair people.
Okay. Well, those are the patterns that came up. That's what you're
Mhm,
dealing with in this life. And you're
mhm,
conquering them. You're definitely conquering them. So, okay,
mhm.
that's lifetime one. Okay, let's do one more.
Okay.
Okay. You want to do one more or not?
Yeah, go for it.
She's
This is interesting.
okay. Again, I am blessed because I feel I'm channeled. It doesn't come through me, it comes through that
Yeah.
energy. So that means I have to keep my act together. I'm not out there spending nights drinking drug, any of that. I clear the channel so it can come through. Okay. Let's see where this one goes. Okay, let's see. I definitely have Italy. But you had a couple lives in Italy. So where I have to find is the life that relates most to this life.
Hmm.
There's a couple of them, but let me just go to the one I think is during the Renaissance time. During it, and it's near the end of the Renaissance time. So I don't know, is that 1400 something in there? I'm not sure. You are definitely a female. You definitely have some money. You definitely marry into a family, a husband with some money. Now, let me tell you the good things and the things you couldn't do in that life that you want to do in this life. The good things, you didn't come from the poverty and worry about food every day. You've had lives like that. But this one, you had the clothing and the hair and, and the carriage and all of those things that go with it.
I knew
And
it.
see, you wanted that one. Now you weren't the upper class, don't worry, but you were definitely there, And but you were assigned who you had to marry. Okay.
Fun.
As a female, you had no say. Understand this? You
Mhm.
could not even go out in your carriage unless a father, a brother, an uncle, a man escorted you.
Mm.
You had no rights as that female. You could look pretty, you could crochet or knit or whatever the tapestry they made, but you couldn't be educated. I see you sneaking around when your brothers are getting educated, and you would be in the room trying to hear what they're learning about the world and science and things like that, because it was considered you didn't need to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. You couldn't get to be an artist and paint, and
Mhm.
you'd see different artists. It's a Renaissance time, and I think your family supported one or two, and they would paint and art and sculpt, and it just fascinated you. That's the frustration you brought into this life that said, get out of my way now. I
Mhm.
am going to be heard, and I'm going to choose what I want to do. I'm going
Mhm.
to choose. So if I want to speak, if I want to have a podcast, if I fail, I fail, but give me the space to do it. And
Mhm.
yes, fail you will at some things and succeed in other things, but you have that inner determination. Okay.
Mhm.
So understand that prestige and that money and that opportunity gave you security back in Italy during the Renaissance. Okay. Which
Okay.
was great, but it did not give you the life to express yourself
Mhm.
as a female. Men could do it.
Mhm.
They could do it. Your husband at that time who you married could do it. And you were to raise the children and take care of the house, but you also had help.
Mhm.
So, yes, you read books and things like that, but you were frustrated that you never could be who
What I
you wanted
wanted.
to be. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, in this life, you have that little saying inside of you is move out of my way and let me give it a shot. You
Mhm.
know, it's my turn to do it. So that's what you came back to do from that life. You brought some of that Italian energy, your last name Italian,
Yeah.
that I love the food, I love the life, I love
Yeah.
the colors, I love the art, I love all that. That came right smack bag, and the nice things came back with you in this life. But
Mhm.
besides that, you would see these artists do something and you would say, they're doing something, they're making a difference, they're creating something. That's what you have to do in this life.
Yeah, I think I've always felt that, and I've always known within myself that I have the ability, like, I can do something big and great, and I think even as a very little girl, I could say that I don't know, I really resonate with that story that you're saying was a past life for me because I always felt a little bit like watching the world and thinking like, "I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. I can do something big, I can do something great." And so I've always kind of felt like I was meant to lead people
Mhm.
because I have the desire to do it and the
When
passion.
you set up your birth life, this life, we make plans, we step forward, we say, I want that assignment. That's why you knew that as a child, because that
Mhm,
was like, I can see that was like one of the top things that you
mhm,
really wanted to complete in this life,
mhm.
to do that. So, okay. So you
Yeah,
learned something about yourself or understood a
yeah.
little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting when you think about, where you've come from hundreds
I
of
know.
years ago.
I know. And I've read lives for people that they were shocked, but then they totally understood it. They
Yeah.
totally understood it. There's a life that I'm coming west, and then my parents, everyone's killed. I mean, it's just the time period, and I'm captured, and I'm at the bottom of going to be killed, and I'm rescued, and I end up in San Francisco, and I'm a dance hall girl. But the
Mhm.
good thing is, I opened up an orphanage when I saw two little girls on the street abandoned because I had been abandoned. I
Mm,
have a draw to San Francisco, and
mhm,
I know that I helped lots of young kids at that time during the gold rush that families died or whatever. That was my
Mhm.
destiny.
Yeah.
And I hustled and scraped and whatever I had to do to get the food for them. But when I
Yeah.
look at it, I go, that's why San Francisco just rings true for me. See?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
There you
no.
go.
Yeah. I've never been to Italy, so I definitely wanna go because I definitely think I could. I've always wanted to go, and I've wondered why I want to go so badly, obviously, because I am Italian, but I'm actually not that much Italian. Well, my dad is gonna be like, "That's not true," but 23andMe says otherwise, so I don't know.
Well, let me see. Northern Italy is where I pick up this life. Now, not that you didn't have different lives there,
Okay.
but that's one
Yeah.
I picked up was for more of uh, Rome up, that
Yeah.
part, Northern Italy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've got it.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, thank you.